Welcome to a brand new retro gaming video, and today we're focusing on 10 Sega Mega Drive, or rather Sega Genesis titles that piqued my interest as a child, and are certainly 10 games to consider if you're getting into retro game collecting, or maybe you just want some ideas, hello Libby, or maybe you just want some ideas on what to buy at the next retro gaming market. Shall we get into it, Libby? Let's do this. Kicking off at number 1 is Streets of Rage, arguably one of the founding fathers of side-scrolling beat-em-ups that paved the way for the likes of Streets of Rage 2 and Streets of Rage 3, and we even have Streets of Rage 4 dropping very, very soon. Now, I really loved playing this with my friend Paula back in the day and accidentally pressing the A button and triggering off the cop car to come in and just wipe out every single enemy on the screen. I mean, I was absolutely devastated that that particular move, or rather feature, wasn't ported across to Streets of Rage 2, but nonetheless we still have it to gloat at with the original Streets of Rage. And whilst it doesn't look as good as its predecessors, it certainly set some solid foundations by way of an awesome, amazing soundtrack like this. Some kick-ass moves like this. And some gnarly bosses to get your teeth, hands and feet sunk into like this. So it's fair to say that Streets of Rage is a phenomenal Sega Mega Drive title, and obviously if you're lucky enough to own a Sega Mega CD, you could relive it with the Sega Classics collection on the Mega CD as well. Libby seems to like it, I definitely love it. What do you guys think? And this is in like no particular order, guys, but my second title has to be, coming off the back of that, Streets of Rage 2, which took 99% of everything that was good about Streets of Rage and just landed it in a brand new game with one of the best. I mean, you heard the Streets of Rage soundtrack, but Streets of Rage 2 soundtrack. I mean, even by today's standards, it's one of the most recognisable video game music scores ever. If you think that there's a more iconic video game score than that, let me know on social media or in the comment section below. Streets of Rage 2 looks a million times better than Streets of Rage. I love the characters, I love the combos, I love the moves. I actually completed it on stream recently as well, right here, because we do some live streams as well. And it's one of those games that I never ever feel bored of playing. I grew up with it. Time after time after time, it was like I could relive Streets of Rage 2 many times in my kind of childhood and my youth and my adulthood as well. So it's one of the greatest games of all times, and I think it's one that I'll never forget. And luckily, it's not too bad of a price. You can pick it up for about 15 quid, depending on where you get it from, box 15 quid and upwards. So make sure you guys scour that retro gaming market stalls for a copy of Streets of Rage 2. Next up then is one of the first Sega Mega Drive games I ever played, and it is the classic Altered Beast.
Rise from your grave.
That's right, rise from your grave indeed, because we have some gnarly, much more slow-paced side-scrolling beat-em-up action, but there's a little twist with this one, as you can morph your powers and just
Power up.
That's right, power up. So I freaking loved it. It was the first side-scrolling beat-em-up game I'd ever played, because it was one of 3 games that my stepsister got for Christmas, and we were like hooked on Altered Beast. And you know, being able to kind of like, when those kind of weird pig things just start jumping onto the screen, you know, you got to punch them. They release this little orb, you got to collect the orb to power up. You know, some of the bosses are really difficult. It's definitely a challenge, and it kept us hooked, gripped, hook, line and sinkered back in the day. And you know what? Now I can't even complete it. Like as a kid, I completed it. Now as an adult, I'm nowhere near being able to complete it because it hasn't aged that well and the controls haven't kind of matured that well either. But I think it is a staple title with some of the best and most iconic gaming phrases of the retro gaming kind of any retro gaming genre really. A really good soundtrack, some very iconic bosses, and I think it was unfortunate that nothing ever eclipsed that. I mean, we had an Altered Beast released, I think, on the 360, but it completely flopped. I don't think anything will ever come as close to perfection as what Altered Beast did back in its heyday. Next up then is one of the all-time greatest fighters on the Sega Mega Drive in my opinion, and that is Mortal Kombat 2. The gore, the soundtrack, the fatalities, the babalities, the moves I could never master unless I just button mashed and hope for the best. Some of the greatest memories with my friends ever, some laughs, some fights, some cries, I mean you name it. Mortal Kombat back then brought out an absolute plethora of experiences for us at a time when Street Fighter 2 was also dominating the gaming fighting scene. But there's something special about Mortal Kombat 2 on the Sega Mega Drive for me, and I'll let you into a little secret. I used to prefer it on the Sega Mega Drive as the controller only had 3 buttons as opposed to the Super Nintendo's baseline 4 and then the 2 triggers on top. I kind of felt a little bit overwhelmed with the Super Nintendo controller, whereas I found it a little bit easier for me to just kind of go the A, B and C route of the Sega Mega Drive. Now today, I still get on that player loading screen and I'll always gravitate to Scorpion with the best move ever.
Outstanding.
And the move that just frustrated my friends so much because all I would do is repeat it, uppercut, repeat it, uppercut, you know, get over here. And like so many times my friends got so pissed off with me, and I'll still do that now, and I always lose to Jess, but it's a classic in terms of its looks, in terms of its characters, in terms of its like immense amount of moves and just utter charm. I mean, utter charm. Some of the levels, the foreground, the midground, the backgrounds, it had it all. It was beautiful. It's aged very well today. And if you're lucky enough to kind of play it with an arcade stick, you can still get that really nice arcade feel. So I would suggest that you guys pick up yourselves a copy of Mortal Kombat 2 on the Sega Mega Drive. Up, down, left, right, A and start. That's the Sonic 1 cheat. That game isn't on this list, but 19, 65, 09, 19, the Sonic 2 cheat, if you go into the options menu, Sonic 2 is on the list. Sonic 2 looked graphically superior to Sonic 1, and of course it introduced Tails, and it introduced many new different levels that kept me gripped for hours, all the way to that very last Robotnik mech thing, which took me weeks and weeks and weeks to kill, but I finally did it. We had the addition of Super Sonic as well when you turned yellow, and let's not forget the half-pipe-esque beauty of the Sonic 2 special stages. That's a bit of a mouthful, but I freaking loved the pacing of the special stages, you know, corner after corner, and the addition of being able to have Tails on those special stages with you to guide you through. If you missed any rings, you know, Tails would be like a fraction behind you, and he would whip up some rings or come into some obstacles and take a little bit of a hit. But nonetheless, level design, music, bosses, you know, Robotnik and his different kind of variations, just lots of challenges as well, like some of the underwater stuff. Oh my god, I still feel the pain of the underwater Sonic moments to this very day, especially on Sonic 2, but I love it. It's close to my heart, and of course it was amplified with the addition of Sonic and Knuckles being able to pop that little beauty into the top of that. It just, you know, there's so much to kind of grasp with it, and the Mega Drive wouldn't have been the Mega Drive without the addition of the beautiful Sonic 2. Oh, we got a good list. We're 5 down, we got 5 left, which brings us to the 6th game, Wonder Boy 3. Now, you don't see this in a lot of people's top 10s, which cripples me. It absolutely cripples me. One of my favourite parts of that game were the kind of side-scrolling shoot-'em-up bosses. Loved the bosses. They'd kind of like change colour the more damage they took, and they'd kind of go through this rainbow of colour before they'd finally explode, and loads of little sprites would come out on the screen. You know, Wonder Boy, again, it's one of those games that just oozes charm. You know, collecting fruit, shooting fruit, seeing the fruit get a little bit bigger and then just exploding, you know, leveling up your points. One of the things that I didn't like as a kid, but I really love now, was that the screen used to move with you. So if you didn't go fast enough, you'd get caught and you would eventually die, which tended to be me. I could probably get to the maybe second, third level if I was lucky back then. But it's one of the games now that I do revisit from time to time, and I have a lot of fun with it, and I have completed it. And I think Wonder Boy is one of those games that people don't talk about enough on the Sega Mega Drive, and I don't know why, because even in today, you know, into this generation, we've had some Wonder Boy remakes. We've had that beauty of the retro coming back to dance with us on the current gen console. So clearly, I think that as a series, Wonder Boy has done wonders. See what I did there? For the gaming market. And Wonder Boy 3, if you manage to find a copy, box complete, expect to pay £20 and upwards. So it's kind of like up there, you know, it's not too expensive. I don't see it around that often, so if you can snag it quick. Love him or hate him, Michael Jackson's Moonwalker is another belter and unique kind of a game whereby your dancing moves are your weapons and your exploration skills can leave a lot to the imagination, because some of the levels in Moonwalker are almost like little labyrinths going down floor after floor after floor. Have I checked this door? Have I checked this window? Have I checked this door under the stairs? You know, you have to find so many of the Michael characters, the little girl things that kind of run around and scuttle off the screen. You know, you've got to find so many of them before it leads you on to the boss of that level. You go into kind of the club, you're out on the streets, you're in the cemetery, there's power-ups to collect. You can become the mech Michael that you see on the classic movie Moonwalker. The soundtrack is there, you've got the Michael Jackson in the 16-bit chiptunes, so it's really, really familiar when you kind of play this game, because everybody kind of grew up, you know, early 90s with a lot of Michael Jackson, so it was great to have that back then, and it's a really good game to play now. It's fun, it's aged well, it controls okay, you know, it's playable to a point where you can have a lot of fun with it, and it goes for about 30 quid, and which is kind of like, you know, again, it's kind of getting up there if you're a collector and you don't have like a huge amount to spend. So, you know, I guess you're going to have to save wisely if you want a kind of Moonwalker, but it's a good game. I love it. Soundtrack, visuals, mechanics, you know, this is 7 out of 10 in terms of mechanics, but it's fun, it's familiar, it's gnarly, and it's in my essential top 10. Okay, another game that I had an absolute rave with, Micro Machines 2, with your top-down, itsy-bitsy little cars, or little boats, or little quads, driving around eccentric tracks like pool tables, kitchen tops, school desks with like going over rulers and little jumps, and then obviously if you're me, you'd fall off a lot and just die. It was so much fun, and you never knew what's coming around the corner because you couldn't see the whole track, and with the top down view, so you take a left and you've hooked it really nicely. It could be like smash into an 8-ball or something, or, you know, smash into a piece of post or a rubber duck if you're on the bath level. I mean, it's so much fun, and I think it really shines when you're playing with friends. I mean, I used to do like little babysitting jobs when I was little, like, you know, like teenager, and you'd kind of like look after like your neighbour's 12-year-old while they've gone out, and we'd just kind of sit glued to the Sega Mega Drive playing some Micro Machines and having a lot of fun with it. It's a game that I never really mastered, but kind of got a little bit better, and I'm pretty proud of my Micro Machines progress. And I think for me, Micro Machines 2 is slightly better because you get more characters to pick from, and I really like the different like characters. You can kind of scroll through them at the beginning, and, you know, everybody looks different, everybody's got their own little kind of almost personality shining through, so love it. Micro Machines, it's so sick, and I still need to play it on the PS4 actually. If you've played it on PS4, Let me know, is it kind of worth getting, or is it just like bargain bin stuff? Please smash a comment below and let me know what you think. All right then, sport title now, which is unlike me, but when I say it, NBA Jam, you'll probably agree with me that NBA Jam is again another belter of a game that dominated the 16-bit era. I had it on the Sega Mega Drive, and for me again, it was a lot easier to play because of just the ABC buttons rather than the kind of like, you know, oh, too many buttons to press on the Super Nintendo. I just found it that little bit easier for me to play on the Sega Mega Drive. And I was always the Chicago Bulls, because back then that was the only basketball team that, for us growing up in the UK, that was the only basketball team I certainly heard of, was the Chicago Bulls. So I'd always kind of gravitate towards that. And as much as the NBA Jam on the Sega Mega Drive isn't as polished as what it looks like on the Super Nintendo, it's still an absolute blast ton of fun, firing around those courts, banging in those slam dunks, banging in those 3-pointers. And again, I think it's a nice staple title. It's kind of like when you look on a shelf of Sega Mega Drive games, you've got your staple titles, your Sonic 2s, pretty much everything I've mentioned. Oh yeah, an NBA Jam as well. So it just rounds things off nicely in this list. Finally, and by no means, you know, last in any list, but it's last on mine, and again, there's no particular order, but Mickey Mouse Castle of Illusion. What a classic experience that game is. Here's a tip though, set it to easy, because medium is way too difficult because there's just loads more enemies. So stick it on easy, you get more health, and there are definitely less enemies. Now you have these little apples, you can throw apples or you can kind of jump on the enemies to kill them. It's very eccentric. This is a Mickey Mouse game we're talking about now, but it's really fun. It's got a cute little soundtrack, it's got a nice little story in the beginning, and my stepsister used to play the hell out of this. We used to have some great laughs with it. And one of the things I really loved back then wasn't the soundtrack, but it was the sound effects, because there's some really quirky little sound effects that just make the game shine audibly. And I would have never expected to really like a Mickey Mouse game like I really like Castle of Illusion. So 10 essential Sega Mega Drive games for your faces blasted through in this video. I hope you can take some value from it, and I hope you guys continue to let me know what you've picked up and what you're looking for. And if you have any suggestions on content you'd like to see, let me know in the comment section below. But we're going to leave it there. If you guys are new here and you want to help me out, just hit that subscribe button. It's free, but if you want to level up, hit that join button if you want a desktop, or hit the first link in the pinned comments and description. From £1.99 a month, you can help me create more content out and about. So thank you very much. I'll see you in the next one. My name is Joan. Take care. See you soon.